The removal of the instrument board of the GLK encompasses all kinds of steps. We begin with an overview. The steering wheel, the battery, the glove box, the radio display, afterwards the loudspeaker cover in the instrument board, then the center console, and lastly the driver's side. We start with the steering wheel. For the first step, we move the steering wheel completely out and down, therefore creating space to move. Next, the air distribution in the footwell is adjusted, because with the removal of the instrument board, the side nozzle flaps in the AC housing can be detached. Also switch the ignition off and take out the key. For safety, disconnect the battery. Remove the battery sensor and disconnect the ground terminal. Proceed in the interior to the glove box. Using a wedge, take off the side trim. The trim of the entrance strip is also removed. Then unclip the lower trim of the A-pillar, but first loosen the door frame seal. Only then two fixtures are accessible. Once the footwell trim is gone, you can undo the 3 screws along the edge. After the footwell, we proceed with the air nozzles. Insert the pull-out hooks and turn 90 degrees. This presses the clips down which hold the nozzle in the instrument board. A small pull and the air nozzle is loose. With the nozzles in the middle of the instrument board, the procedure is repeated. Also separate the plug. Now use the wedge again. Lever out the frame of the command display and remove the trim strip. Under the trim strip are 3 screws to remove. As soon as you've opened the glove box, you'll find another screw to be removed. The last screw remains under the glove box. Here you might need to change the bit of your cordless screwdriver. When the last screw is undone, take the glove box and unclip the plug connections of the glove box lighting. Separate the ignition capsule 1 and the plug connections of the passenger airbag, one yellow and one green. Between these connections, you'll find a screw which you remove. Only the trim of the A-pillar, and then that was it for the passenger side. Using a wedge, take off the cover and unscrew the nut underneath. And you can lever out the trim using a wedge. Now we come to the command. First, take off the trim molding using the wedge. Remove the 2 screws underneath. Before you take the command from the instrument board, the gear shift must be brought to the very back position. For this, pull up the sheath and operate the yellow button with one hand, while with the other you move the gear shift to the back. Now, to take out the command, one more retainer must be unlocked, this time within the trim. Then disconnect all plugs at the back of the radio. Remove the frame of the display with your fingers. Under it are 2 screws to be unscrewed. Then the display can be tilted out so you can separate the plugs and remove the display. Now the loudspeaker cover of the instrument board is next. Take off the cover with a wedge and separate the plug. The loudspeaker underneath is fastened with 2 screws, which must be removed. And the loudspeaker can be taken from the trim and the corresponding plug unclipped. A screw is covertly hidden under the speaker. Remove this. For the removal of the center console, the gear shift is removed first. To do this, raise the sheath and separate the plug. Then turn the gear lever knob and pull upwards and away. With a wedge, the remaining frame can be removed. Under it are 2 screws which are to be removed. Once they are gone, the ashtray is quite easy to remove, provided that you disconnect the suitable plug. Under the ashtray is a nut which holds the front of the center console. Remove the nut in order to pull this back later. A little further up is the AC control panel. The frame is levered out with the wedge. Afterwards, tilt the AC control panel until you can reach the plug, and then you can remove it from the trim. Behind it are 2 screws. Remove these. And now move to the back, since here the center console must also be disconnected. First, remove the DVD player. Behind it are 2 nuts, which you must remove. Only then can the center console be raised and pulled back. The final steps take place on the driver's side. Remove the footwell lining of the driver's side. The side trim is removed with a wedge. Then the airbag unit is taken from the steering wheel. And now the steering wheel is removed. Then the steering column tube. Take it off and separate the plug. The A-pillar trim still remains. Just as before on the passenger side, unscrew and unclip. Proceed with the EZ-S. Remove using the claw wrench in the rosette of the ignition. In addition, right and left of the steering wheel are 2 trim strips. Lever them carefully out. Also remove the instrument cluster dimmer switch. And the wedge is used again. Lever out the frame of the instrument cluster. Under it are 4 screws with which the instrument cluster is held. After you have undone all 4 screws, the plug is also to be separated. Do not forget to disconnect the electronic ignition switch of the instrument board so that it does not get damaged. And then back to the ventilation, since the nozzle here must also be removed from the driver's side. Also, the fuse box is taken from the trim. This way you can reach inside and separate the plug of the rotary light switch. While you're there, unhook the Bowden cable of the parking brake from the release catch. Then push the fuse box back into the instrument board. Afterwards, proceed in the footwell. In the driver's knee bag, the plug and nuts are removed. You recognize the connection by the green plug. One nut is directly beside the plug. For the second one, you must look a little further in the direction of the center console. And now the home stretch, only 5 screws. 2 hold the instrument board on the driver's side near the door frame. 2 fix the instrument board to the center console. And the last screw holds the instrument board on the passenger's side. Once these 5 screws are away, you can raise the instrument board together with a colleague. There is one more thing to look out for. The plug of the temperature sensor is hidden under the trim. Once this is separated, you can finally remove the instrument board. After the steering wheel, glove box, radio and display, loudspeaker, as well as a lot of trim, the removal of the instrument board is finished.